So it's been a turbulent weekend of Championship football, but we are back talking about the first week of Championship back from the international break. Oh my word, we've had some crazy games. We've had shock results. We've had the top two teams lose their first game of the season. We've got a new leader now. We've got new teams entering the playoffs now. The competition in the Championship so far is immense. Also, since none of you left a correct prediction, I am not going to be able to shout your channels out, unfortunately. Some people are leaving comments, which is really nice. In terms of my predictions, I actually did all right. I got two predictions right. That was the Fulham and West Brom game and the Derby and Cardiff game, both ending as a 1-1 draw, which I was a bit surprised about because I think both of those predictions were quite bold. I'm happy with two correct predictions. So let's talk about what we learned about the Championship Matchday 7. So we're going to start off Friday's game, Derby versus Cardiff. This ended as a 1-1 draw, as I said. A game that I kind of predicted kind of well. Derby had a very strong start. They started like a house on fire. Scott Below managed to score under 6 minutes. It was terrific play going into the box, and there was a bit of a goal-man scramble. Huddersfield and Waghorn tried to force the ball from the net. Smithies was proving to be quite resistant. In the end, Malone got it in the end. A bit of a scrappy goal, but in the end, a goal was a goal, and I was hoping that Cardiff could keep that lead. However, they managed to concede a penalty 10 minutes later, which was a good response from Cardiff. And it was Robert Glatzel who scored his first goal this season for Cardiff. In terms of my opinion, I did slag him off quite a little bit in my previous video. He's not as bad as I made out to be. I think he needs a little bit of time to get suited to the quality of the Championship. But I've seen him go into some pretty good positions throughout this game. Cardiff could have had a second goal in this game. Bielik nearly scored a fantastic own goal which came off the post, so he was a little bit lucky that he got away with that. That was pretty much what went on in the first and second half. Both teams were really desperate to try and win. Cardiff actually did really well attacking wise. I thought they were going to sit back a little bit, but Cardiff had a fearless approach to this game. They just weren't clinical enough. Scott Malone, I think, came the closest in the second half, pretty much. Almost immediately after the second half, he pinged a brilliant shot, but just came outside of the crossbar to deny him in the end. Although having said that, Glatzel almost scored a brace, although Matt Clark managed to block his header off the line. So in the end, both teams had chances to win the game. With a 1-1 draw, I think it's going to suit Cardiff a little bit more than Derby. Derby so far is still winless at home, and they need to try and find a formula that's going to make everyone click and to get plenty of goals at home. It's shown that they can do it. Waghorn and Marriott look two promising strikers for Derby, but in the midfield, I don't think they're really supplying them enough. With Cardiff, there's more promise shown from Cardiff. They just need to try and turn these draws into wins. But yeah, 1-1 draw, I say a fair result in the end, but it's probably more suited to Cardiff than it will be for Derby. So the afternoon kickoff for Saturday was Fulham against West Brom, which also ended as a 1-1 draw, and another correct prediction. This was a really good spectacle. I thought in the first half, not a lot happened in the first half. I think from 2/3 of this game, Fulham had all the possession and had all the chances, which resulted in Anthony Knockaert scoring an absolute brilliant goal. There was a goal that just looped over Sam Johnston. He was completely bewildered how it got in, but it was the technique in that shot. I think a little bit of an underrated goal. But in the angle and the technique to allow the ball to dip over, absolutely incredible. And in the end, I thought that was going to be enough and Fulham were going to hold on. But in the end, Samuel Ajayi managed to equalise for West Brom, heading Matthias Pereira's corner. Bettinelli wasn't pleased about it. He went to the ref saying that Charlie Austin fouled him in the build-up. I don't agree, and I think it was pretty poor from Bettinelli. He didn't get anything from it. If anything, he should have tried to challenge Charlie Austin and to get both hands on the ball and at least try and catch it or even punch it away and not to parry it, because that's only going to lead Ajayi a free header, and that's exactly what he did. If you were to look at the 60 minutes of this game, Fulham controlled it, but what's been really clear so far is that they're struggling to maintain that mentality, that high tempo throughout the 90 minutes. If they were to do that for the whole 90 minutes, they would be ripping teams apart, I think, but for some reason now they're not being as clinical as they are in front of goal, even though they've still got the likes of Cavallero, Mitrovic and Knockaert. It's good with the amount of options they had. They're just having a little bit of a slumpy form at the moment, but I think it will take one good win and then they'll rejuvenate that good momentum. West Brom, though, they're proving to be a very difficult team to beat. They are a team that's willing to fight to the end, and the way that they managed to get into the game a little bit late, it took them about 65 minutes to get something from this game, but in the end it shows that they are really well drilled and are determined to get anything from the game. So 1-1 draw, maybe not the fairest result. Probably Fulham should have won that game based on how good they were in the first 60 minutes, but it's definitely going to suit West Brom a lot more than it will do with Fulham so far. So then you have Blackburn beating Millwall by 2-0. I thought it was a pretty good performance by the home side, I won't lie. Millwall, in terms of the 90 minutes, didn't create all that much in the 90 minutes, but Blackburn came with a plan, and that really did count to show. They were excellent, I thought, for most of that game. Derek Williams, who was the hero against Hull, he was the hero and starting the scoring now. Wow, what a goal it was. 18 minutes in, powerful volley he hit from outside the box. There was no way Bilkowski was going to save that. Blackburn continued to probe forward. They could have scored a few more. Although Millwall did have a few chances, but overall Christian Walton wasn't too tested in the goal. Bradley Damm managed to seal the game as he slid in and poked the ball through the net. Millwall, they're in a pretty poor run of form at the moment, but they just need to try and reassure themselves and to try and get onto a good run, because if this poor run continues, they could be slumping lower down the table as I predicted from the start of the season. With Blackburn, this will be a very, very important win for them. I think they needed to show that they've still got it after from the international break. Especially with their pretty mediocre performance against Cardiff, they showed that Ewood Park is going to be a difficult place for most teams to go to this season. So arguably one of the biggest shocks of the weekend was Charlton losing their first game of the season at the Valley. Jude Bellingham, who's a lot younger than me, I won't lie, but he managed to score the only goal in the end, and it was a really, really good goal as well. He's now scored twice in 2 games as well, and I'm really, really happy that the youngster has now stepped up and has pretty much cemented his place into the starting lineup. Charlton, they were missing Noel Taylor, which I would admit when I did my fixture marathon I didn't know about. If I had known that, then maybe I would have adjusted my prediction a little bit, but Birmingham away from home I wasn't convinced. This was the first performance I saw from Birmingham that I thought they actually looked pretty good. They were forcing some chances out of Charlton. Charlton did have a few chances, but they looked really, really toothless going forward. Camp had to make a few saves, but it wasn't anything that even he wouldn't be troubled by. I think overall the better side won, even though Charlton had the majority of the possession, which you'd expect being at home. Birmingham looked more likely to score. Birmingham so far are only missing out on the playoffs by goal difference, so I can't deny they've not looked all that convincing, but so far they're somehow getting the points, and I cannot undermine them for that. With Charlton, it did result in Lee Boyer getting sent off to the stands as well. He was obviously not happy with some of the stuff that was going on. I think Charlton will recover from this, but what they cannot afford to do is to slump the rest of the season because of one bad game, because I think when Noel Taylor gets back into the squad, I think they will be back at their best. But you can't lie, maybe Birmingham maybe exposed a few problems that Charlton may have. So a very, very entertaining game went out in the KCOM Stadium. Hull City didn't manage to beat Wigan. Wigan managed to fight back and get a 2-2 draw, and I thought it was a very, very spirited performance by the away side. Wigan looked absolutely sensational in the first 10 minutes of the game, and they deservedly went 1-up from Che Dunkley. It was a pretty good goal from him as well. Hull started to grow into the game after Wigan had their great spell. Jared Bowen and Kamil Grzycki both proving to be the difference. Grzycki's goal was fantastic. He scored from another free kick. Don't think it was as impressive as his one 2 weeks ago, but it was still a fantastic free kick regardless. Getting to the second half, I thought Hull were going to be a little bit more resilient and try and keep that lead, but it was actually Joe Gerfeld, I think that's how you pronounce his name, the 17-year-old, another player that's younger than me, scored on his only 4th appearance for Wigan, and he could be a really, really big player coming up in the future because his goal was absolutely terrific. I say with the stats, Hull ultimately control most of the game, but I think with Wigan's style of play, they did really well to fight for this game, and if they can prove to have that kind of fight and desire for more games to come, then they can potentially climb out from the relegation zone. This is going to be a bit of a blow for Hull City. I felt this was going to be the game that could really start their season properly. They still have not felt that yet, and more players around this whole team need to step up. They can't rely on the great quality of Jared Bowen and Kamil Grzycki to get them goals, in my opinion. With Wigan though, this is encouraging signs. They are actually only 1 point behind Hull at the moment. And I think overall a very good and well contested game. Before I move on, I thought it was a lovely touch from whole to make a tribute to Angus MacDonald, who's currently out of the first team squad due to having bowel cancer, unfortunately, and I wish Angus MacDonald and his family the best, and I wish Angus a speedy recovery. So to move on with Middlesbrough and Reading, this ended as a 1-0 victory to Middlesbrough. It was a game that not too much happened. In terms of quality, it was not the biggest spectacle. Middlesbrough had a couple of chances, but ultimately Reading looked like the better side in the first half. But ultimately the difference was from Marvin Johnson scoring the only goal in the game. It was a pretty nice goal from him in the end. It's a tough result for Reading to take. They did nearly equalise from Lucas João, who almost met a brilliant pass from John Swift and was denied by Randolph. Randolph, I'd say, was the man of the match in that game. He had a terrific performance in the Middlesbrough goal. I think this is a really good result for Middlesbrough. They're now unbeaten in 4 matches, which is encouraging for Jonathan Woodgate, and it's only going to bring the side with more confidence. Maybe this is the start of Middlesbrough starting to climb up the table. Then slowly but surely starting to climb up. They're nearly in the top half of the table now. With Reading, they have fallen down a little bit from that defeat, but the quality is still there, most importantly. The only thing that will hold them back is that if they don't deal with that mentally, but I'm pretty sure they will, because I felt Reading were a little bit hard done by not to get a draw from this game. And a very good result for Preston North End, beating Brentford by 2-0. As it stands, they are in the playoffs right now. And one thing I will say, and this is from 2 weeks coming, I say Preston might actually have a chance against Manchester City in the EFL Cup if Manchester City continue to perform as they did against Norwich. But moving that aside, I thought Preston were terrific against Brentford. They were dominated in possession, but that's what I expected. Preston are not going to be a team that's going to blow teams away in terms of their quality. What they do is that they're clinical, they play a certain way, and they play it well. Sean Maguire scored very, very early on. Maguire managed to score as Brentford didn't manage to deal with a corner. Big disappointing defensively on Brentford's part as they couldn't clear it. Brentford did have a few chances in the game side. Ben Rama had a pretty good chance with Brian Mbimbio going pretty close for them as well. But it was Barkuzian who's managed to seal the game, who I felt probably should have had a penalty earlier on. However, he managed to convert a fantastic cross by Darnell Fisher. Ultimately, for that, they kept a clean sheet as well against a very good Brentford side who would have been riding with confidence with their performance against Derby last time. Preston may be a force to be reckoned with at home. They are looking unstoppable at home. The only thing that might hold Preston back for the rest of the season is that if they get some players injured. Also, they've got to try and replicate their fantastic home form with their away form, because they haven't won away from home yet. But 2-0, a fantastic result for Preston, not a great result for Brentford as well, who are very much below par. And one of the more entertaining games in the Kevin Prince Stadium, Queen's Park Rangers managed to beat Luton by 3-2. And I think this was a fantastic lesson for Luton. They were really shuddy in the first 30 minutes. QPR could have made it a cricket score from the first half. Luton were 3-0 down, with 2 of the occasions being very, very poor defensively and their passing just not being at it at all. Sluga as well, with one of Naki Wells' goals, was pretty poor that he didn't keep it out either. However, Luton did very, very well to get back into it. One player from Luton who impressed me in that game was Harry Cornick. He managed to score Luton's first it was a mistake by Joe Lumley, but he also supplied the second goal for Luton as well. So I feel like him and Collins are going to be very, very important for Luton going forward. Eze's first goal was absolutely brilliant. It had so much power. No way Sluga would have been saving that. The Queen's Park Rangers, they've continued their fantastic form. They are tying on points and are just missing out on the playoffs and goal difference. Luton, they're still down in 16th, and their back-to-back wins has come to an end now. I think what's important with Luton is that they've got to really take charge of their home games. If they can win enough home games, then I think Luton will be okay. So yeah, overall a disappointing day for Luton, but their fight back shows that there's promise. And Stoke City just cannot seem to get anything going for them right now. They lost 2-1 away from home to Bristol City, and in my opinion, it was a game that they should have never lost. They were absolutely brilliant in the first part of the first half. They scored immediately out of Sam Clucas, a nicely worked goal from him. Joe Allen got sent off by a very late challenge from Josh Brownhill. Very silly challenge from him in my opinion. Stoke were doing really well to try and hold the pressure out from the first half down to 10 men. However, Bristol City managed to capitalise having the extra man, and I think Johnson changed a few things tactically as well, going more at Stoke a little bit. Jeju managed to equalise, and this led to Tom Edwards getting an own goal, and that in the end was the difference. Jones has not had a good run of games. He's only won 4 matches in his last 30 games, and I could tell he's really frustrated. He knows that there's quality in his team. Bristol City though, they've continued their fantastic winning streak. They are now 3rd place, which means if they can continue this win going, it can only get better from there. So overall, Bristol City will be riding high. Stoke just need to keep trying. I think eventually something will go for them, but so far they've clearly not having a fantastic start. And the last Saturday game, which was probably one of the shocks of the weekend, was that Swansea have finally lost their first game, and it was to a Nottingham Forest side. When I watched this game, Swansea, of course, were going to dominate all the possession. They had a lot of joy with possession, but Nottingham Forest overall looked far more dangerous. They were playing really well with the counter-attack. Every time Forest probed forward, they always looked like scoring. Sammy Obi had a fantastic chance, but it was wonderfully saved by Woodman, who was determined to keep a clean sheet. And Graben had a goal disallowed because he was offside, unfortunately for him. Lewis Graben also hit the bar, and I just thought it was going to be one of those games that would just end as a 0-0, or Swansea were going to get a late winner. But no, there was a late winner, but it went to Nottingham Forest. It was Semedo, who I said for when Forest played against Leeds, he was one of their better players because he had a lot of energy on the ball, and he showed that when he scored against Swansea as well. Swansea was surprisingly flat. They didn't really create anything. I think Andre Ayew came the closest, but Samba didn't really need to make all that many saves in the end, and maybe Nottingham Forest has having exposed a weakness in Swansea. Although Nottingham Forest so far, they are doing terrifically well away from home. They've got points against Fulham, they've won against Swansea, they managed to get a draw against Leeds as well. They're doing fantastically well away from home. If they could do the same at home, Forest could be a contender for top 6, I think. With Swansea, they haven't lost too much ground. They are still in the top 2, but it was an opportunity missed, I'd say, to try and put more pressure onto Leeds. Now going through the 2 Yorkshire derbies, Huddersfield and Sheffield Wednesday was not the best game in terms of quality, I think everyone would agree, but it was Gary Monk's side that managed to win by 2-0. Did Huddersfield look even better? At times they did look okay. They got into some decent positions. Trevor Chalobah looked pretty good in that game, but whenever they go forward, they just never look like scoring. I thought the introduction of Bakuna was a really good decision by Cowley. He brought a lot of energy in the game and almost provided some fantastic chances for Huddersfield. Stephen Fletcher managed to score the first goal. A very simple goal, simply answering from a cross from Harris. Terence Kongolo nearly got an equaliser, but Westwood had to make a fantastic save, and that was when Bakuna came on, and I was surprised that Bakuna wasn't starting. Reach also had a fantastic chance which Grabo had to make a pretty good save for, but in the end it was Winnell who managed to get the winning goal, and it seemed way too easy for Sheffield Wednesday to score. Defensively, Huddersfield looked really loose in that game, and attacking wise, even though they did try, they never looked like scoring, and that needs to be fixed around the club. With Sheffield Wednesday though, they looked solid, they looked really organised in that game. Sam Hutchinson, I thought, had a fantastic game for Sheffield Wednesday, and of course Stephen Fletcher doing well as well, and I think Sheffield Wednesday overall, they could be a really strong team this season based on what I saw there. Huddersfield, they need to find a system and fast. They're not scoring enough goals and they're not defensively strong enough. And Barnsley and Leeds ended as a 2-0 away victory to Leeds. This didn't look like there was going to be the way most of the game. It was, when we entered the 80th minute, it was still 0-0, and I thought it was going to be a standard 0-0 draw and a cagey affair. But it was Eddie Nketiah who was the difference in the end, and he's proving to be a really good super sub for Leeds at the moment. He met a Calvin Phillips free kick and he was the first one onto it, and Eddie Nketiah was fouled for Leeds' second goal because it was a penalty, and Click managed to score it, a very nice penalty from him. Barnsley did have a few chances though. Cauley Woodrow did test Kiko Casilla, Luke Thomas also testing him as well, although Leeds had plenty of chances as well. Patrick Bamford had a couple of chances as well. I think overall Leeds were the better team and did deserve to win, but Barnsley did have a little bit of a spiritual performance at Oakwell. Overall, I think it was a fantastic response for Leeds that they managed to still probe forward to try and get something from the game. They made Swansea losing to Nottingham Forest count because now they're first place. With Barnsley, I think they're doing all they can to try and escape the relegation zone. I can't really fault Barnsley's efforts because they did pretty well against a really tough Leeds side. Anyway, I didn't feel like that they were going to have many chances in this game. But I think overall, Barnsley aren't moving in the right direction. With Leeds, I think they're starting what they've left off and they're probably going to have a really strong second part of this championship season. So there you have it. These are all the championship fixtures discussed. Here's how the table looks after match day 7. So Leeds and Swansea tied on top of the table with 16 points. Charlton, with their first loss, fall down into the playoffs. Bristol City in 4th. Preston and West Brom make out the rest of the playoff places. Then you've got QPR and Birmingham tied on points, but just missing out on the playoffs of goal difference. Sheffield Wednesday and Nottingham Forest are really close behind them. Fulham's draw really hurt their chances in trying to stay in the playoffs. They're down to 11th. Blackburn have now made double figures in points, a very good result for them in the weekend. Cardiff and Derby have continued their slow start. They are both 14th and 19th respectively. Millwall have fallen down quite a bit at 15th. They're going to need to recover soon and make sure they don't fall down any further. Hull and Barnsley are once again the two teams just above the relegation zone, both showing promise in their games, but both just not being consistent enough throughout the whole 90 minutes to get a result. And of course, Stoke, Huddersfield and Wigan are still the 3 teams in the relegation zone, although Wigan got a fantastic away point against Hull City. There you guys, that would wrap it up for today's video. If you liked what you see, please give the video a like and a share and a subscribe. All of that will be tremendously appreciated. I think uploads are going to be a lot less frequent now. University for me is literally right around the corner. But I do hope to upload as much as I can because I love you guys. Anyway, that will wrap it up. Thank you guys so much for watching. You guys are legendary if you saw the end of this crazy video. And as always, take care guys.